Hello, my friend. Welcome to your sleep story. My name is Stephen Dalton. I'm an Irish storyteller, and it's my great privilege to be the voice that you listen to as you go to sleep tonight. Now, I'm very aware that we have a lot of Australian listeners, and not just Australian, but New Zealanders and people from all over the southern hemisphere. I'm also very aware that Christmas in those parts of the world is a very different experience to the one experienced by people from my part of the world. And so I decided to write a story about a young man from Australia all the way back in the 1920s, who had a deep yearning to see what Christmas was like on the top of the world. So we will follow the voyage of Jack as he heads from Australia all the way to the North Pole. If you want the video to end at a particular point, YouTube allows you to set a timer in the settings. It's called Remind Me When It's Bedtime. And don't forget to disable autoplay to avoid ads from upcoming videos. Okay, let's do the relaxation session, which will take a few minutes before tonight's sleep story. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1. And as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support beneath you. Your bed, the floor, the foundations of where you sleep tonight, or the earth beneath all of it. Allow that feeling of support to really allow you to let go, to loosen, to sink a little deeper into this moment. 9. Tune into your body now. Where are you holding? Are you holding in your hands? In your feet? Maybe in your face? Let go now. Your body has worked hard for you today. It deserves rest. Allow it to rest now. 8. The day is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. Whatever thoughts you might have about the day that has just been, they're not useful now. Don't fight them, though. Say hello to them, like old friends, and then see them like leaves on a river, floating away. The same goes for any thoughts you have about anything else right now. They don't serve you in this moment. Let your mind rest. 7. Know that peace lives within you. It is your constant friend. It might be a friend you don't always see or feel, but it's always there waiting for you to see it, to acknowledge it, to feel it. 6. This is your time. This is your moment. Remember that you deserve this moment. You deserve rest. You deserve peace. 5. Perhaps allow a little gratitude now for the coziness of this moment. For the shelter you have tonight. For life. For begin to engage with your imagination. Begin to see the golden shores of the Australian coast in your mind's eye. 3. Letting go a little bit more now. Wherever you're holding on to, just let go. 2. You are safe. Allow my voice to be your anchor of safety now, that will only take you to safe places. 1. Completely letting go now, as I tell you tonight's sleep story. There once was a little boy who lived in a far-off land. In fact, this land was so far away that at Christmas it was hot and sunny. Now, this boy had only one dream, and that dream was a simple one. Yet, some might say, quite difficult to achieve. For the boy wished to spend Christmas at least once in his life in a snowy and cold place, as close as possible to the North Pole. Now you might say, well, surely he could just jump on a plane and fly to this snowy place. Sure, that would have been easy if the boy lived today. But I forgot to mention a couple of important points. Firstly, the boy lived in Australia. And secondly, the year was 1922. Commercial flying is but a distant dream, and the boy lived on the bottom of the world. Young Jack, with his head full of dreams of snow and ice, could often be found sitting on the sandy shores of his Australian hometown, gazing out at the ocean. The vastness of the sea seemed to whisper possibilities to him, igniting his imagination with tales of distant, frozen lands. Each wave that lapped at the shore brought with it a story from afar, fueling Jack's longing to witness the snowy wonder of the North Pole. Jack's fascination with the North Pole was nurtured by the stories he read. He spent countless hours in the small local library, poring over books about explorers and their polar adventures. The librarian, Mrs. Ellis, had taken a liking to young Jack and often set aside books that she thought would interest him. "One day you'll have your own tales to tell, Jack," she'd say with a smile. Jack treasured these moments, the stories fueling his dream, making it more vivid with each passing day. Around Christmas each year, while other children in town were excited about summer holidays and beach outings, Jack would sit on the beach and enjoy the amazing Australian summer, but his thoughts were of a different world entirely. He would imagine the crunch of snow underfoot, the crisp, cold air, and the serene silence of a snow-covered landscape. It wasn't just the snow that captivated him, but the whole idea of a Christmas so different from what he knew. One with hot cocoa by a fire, woolen mittens, and the soft glow of lights against the snow. He longed to experience this other world, a stark contrast to the sun-drenched Christmas of Australia. As Jack grew older, this dream did not fade. It became a part of him. When he wasn't by the sea or lost in books, he could be found helping his father at their family-owned hardware store. There, while stocking shelves or sweeping floors, his mind was always wandering to the icy realms of the far north. He knew that to realize his dream, he would need to be determined, resourceful, and patient. On his 18th birthday, Jack made a vow to himself. He stood on the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in beautiful oranges and pinks, and promised himself that he would see the North Pole. "No matter how long it takes," he whispered to the sea, I will stand on the snow and touch the cold sky. That night, under the stars, Jack felt a deep sense of purpose. His journey, he knew, would be a long one, filled with challenges and adventures, but his heart was set. The boy from the warm coast of Australia was determined to chase the cold embrace of the distant north. In the months leading up to his departure, Jack's life was consumed by preparation. His small room transformed into a command center of maps, charts, and books about distant lands. He spent countless hours plotting his route, marking the places he would visit on his way to the North Pole. Every evening, after helping his father at the store, Jack dedicated himself to learning everything he could about navigation, survival skills, and the cultures he would encounter. His walls were lined with notes and clippings, each a piece of the puzzle in his grand adventure. Jack's preparations weren't just academic. He trained physically, knowing the journey ahead would test his limits. He ran along the beaches, swam in the ocean, and hiked in the nearby hills. His body grew stronger, more resilient, ready for the challenges of the long voyage. He also saved every penny he could, working extra hours and taking on odd jobs. The locals, who had watched Jack grow up, supported his dream, offering him work, advice, and sometimes old equipment that might be useful on his journey. As the day of departure neared, Jack's excitement was tinged with nervous anticipation. He meticulously checked and rechecked his gear: a sturdy backpack, a reliable compass, basic camping equipment, and a journal to document his travels. He also carried a small, hand-carved wooden box, a gift from Mrs. Ellis, which contained a few precious keepsakes to remind him of home. The night before he left, Jack couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with thoughts of the journey ahead. He imagined the places he would see, the people he would meet, and the experiences that awaited him. It was a mix of fear and exhilaration, a feeling that he was standing on the edge of a great unknown. Dawn broke on the day of Jack's departure, casting a golden light over the town. The community gathered at the docks to see him off, their faces a mixture of pride and concern. Jack's parents hugged him tightly, their eyes brimming with tears. His father, a man of few words, clasped Jack's shoulder firmly. "Make your dream real," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Jack nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He stepped onto the ship, his heart pounding in his chest, and as the vessel pulled away from the dock, he waved until his hometown was just a speck on the horizon. As the ship carrying Jack ventured out into the open sea, he stood at the railing, watching the coastline of Australia fade into the distance. The vastness of the ocean lay before him, a seemingly endless expanse of blue. The ship, a sturdy old vessel named the Southern Star, was filled with the sounds of creaking wood and the salty tang of the sea. Jack felt a thrilling sense of adventure as the ship cut through the waves, each crest pushing him further towards his dream. The early days of the voyage were filled with wonder. Jack spent hours on deck, feeling the cool sea breeze against his face and watching the play of sunlight on the water. He often sat with the captain, an experienced seafarer named Captain Hughes, who shared stories of his own travels and taught Jack the nuances of sea navigation. The nights were a different kind of magic, with the sky above a canvas of stars, unmarred by the lights of civilization. Jack would lay on the deck, the gentle rocking of the ship lulling him, as he gazed up at the constellations, feeling small yet connected to the vast world around him. Here, he was able to understand more the meaning of of existence. Not that anyone can ever fully know, but he started to get a sense of his meaning. He started to watch how all the men on the ship worked together, how humans are better working with each other. And he felt a profound sense of being on a planet, and his place within it. The Southern Star made several stops at ports along the way, each a new world for Jack to explore. He marveled at the bustling markets of Indonesia, the vibrant culture of Singapore, and the busy streets of India. He smelled smells he had never smelled before. He felt a type of heat he had never experienced before. But one of the overriding things that he witnessed was that no matter the color of our skin, or the place we are born, or the culture we grow up in, we are all essentially the same. Humans, most of us doing our best to move through life, trying to stick to our values, trying to be kind when we can. Jack's collection of experiences grew richer with each stop. He interacted with locals, sometimes trading stories or helping with work in exchange for meals or a few nights' lodging. Here he truly witnessed the kindness of strangers, and how nearly every stranger is just a friend you haven't met. As the ship ventured further west, the climate and landscape began to change. The humid air of the tropics gave way to the drier, cooler breezes of the Middle East. Jack witnessed the golden deserts of Arabia, the stark contrast to the lush greens he had left behind. He learned of ancient traditions and customs, of the lives shaped by the desert and the sea. These lands were steeped in history, and Jack found himself captivated by the tales of old, the legends and myths that seemed to echo in the wind. Now the voyage was not without its challenges. there were days of relentless rain, nights of fierce storms that made the ship groan and creak under the fury of nature. Jack learned to respect the power of the ocean, a force both beautiful and formidable. And through it all, he maintained a journal, documenting every experience, every thought, and every lesson learned on the journey. His dream of reaching the snowy landscapes of the North Pole seemed ever more real with each passing day. A distant point on the map drawing closer with each mile traveled. Jack's journal. 20th of June, 1933. Somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea. Today, something extraordinary happened. Something that I believe has changed the way I see the world. This morning, as the Southern Star sailed through the tranquil waters of the Mediterranean, Captain Hughes invited me to join him in a small rowboat to visit a secluded island he had come across in his early days of sailing. The island, a tiny speck of land with a rocky shore and a heart of lush greenery, was uninhabited, or so we thought. As we rowed closer, we saw an old man sitting on the beach, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He was a hermit, Captain Hughes explained, one of the few who still live in such a solitary way. We approached him cautiously, not wanting to intrude, but he welcomed us with a smile and gestured for us to sit beside him on the warm sand. His name was Elias, and he had been living on the island for many years, finding peace in the simplicity of solitude. Elias spoke of his life, of the things he had given up, and the wisdom he had gained. In solitude, I found clarity, he said, his voice as calm as the sea before us. In silence, I heard the truth of my heart. We chase so many desires, hold so many fears, but in the end, what truly matters is the peace we find within ourselves. His words struck a chord in me. Here was a man who had lived a life so different from anyone else I had met. Yet, he seemed to possess a deep understanding of life, an understanding that I yearned to reach. We talked for hours, the conversation flowing as easily as the gentle waves lapping at the shore. As the sun began to set, Captain Hughes and I bid Elias farewell. Rowing back to the ship under the early stars, I returned to my cabin that night with a heart full of thoughts. Elias's words lingered in my mind, a reminder that sometimes stepping away from the world can bring us closer to understanding it. This journey, I realized, is more than just a pursuit of a childhood dream. It is a journey of discovery, of learning about the world, and, in turn, about myself. Each person I meet, each experience I have, is a step towards a greater understanding, a step towards the wisdom I seek. As I write this, the southern star sails on, carrying me towards my dream. "3 years since leaving Australia, Jack finally found himself on the final leg of his journey to the North Pole. It was a crisp, clear morning when he set foot on a ship in Northern Europe, one that would take him through the icy waters to his long-awaited destination. His time in Europe had been another chapter of wonder. He had marveled at the Eiffel Tower in Paris, its iron lattice a symbol of human ingenuity and creativity. Standing beneath it, he had felt a connection to all the dreamers of the world, those who dared to build the impossible. Now, as the ship plowed through the Arctic Ocean, Jack found himself reflecting on his journey. He had changed in ways he couldn't have imagined when he first left his coastal town. The people he met, the cultures he experienced, the challenges he overcame, all had shaped him into someone new. He realized now that what he sought wasn't just the experience of snow and cold, but a deeper understanding of the world and himself. As the ship approached the icy expanse of the North Pole, Jack stood on deck. The cold Arctic air biting at his cheeks before him lay a vast, white wilderness, a world of endless snow and ice, stark and so beautiful. Yet, as he gazed upon this frozen landscape, on this Christmas morning, a profound realization dawned on him. It wasn't just about reaching this point on the map. It was about every moment that led him here. The journey itself. Yes, the snowy plains of the North Pole were breathtaking, but they held no more wonder than the tropical islands of the Pacific, the bustling markets of Africa, or the historic streets of Europe. Each step of his journey had been a destination in its own right, filled with lessons, joys, and discoveries. The true treasure wasn't the end of the journey, but the journey itself. Every other human he met, every shared moment, every smiling face, every kindness showed to him, every challenge he faced, every sunrise and sunset he witnessed. As Jack stood there at the top of the world, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. In his mind's eye, he saw himself as that boy back on the beaches of Australia on Christmas Day, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. And he knew now that that experience of Christmas was just as valid and just as enriching and just as beautiful as any snowy Christmas ever experienced. He had achieved his childhood dream, but more importantly, he had discovered the joy of the journey. The North Pole was a symbol of that journey, a marker of how far he had come, not just in miles, but in life. And so on that Christmas morning in 1935, Jack knew in his heart that when he would one day return home, he would carry with him not just stories of the places he had seen, but the wisdom, the kindness, and the utter humanity that he had gained along the way.